the power of thought, the root of suffering and happiness. Be mindful of your thoughts. Thought is what creates our lives. Dhammapada. In the boundless current of life, thoughts are like silent but potent seeds. The Buddha once taught that the mind is the forerunner, the leader of all things. Thought arising from the mind is the origin of all speech and action, shaping the entire destiny of a person. If a thought arises from compassion, wisdom, and mindfulness, it will lead us to peace. But if it is nurtured by anger, delusion, and ego, it will drag us into the maze of suffering. We cannot change the outside world to our liking, but we can transform the way we think about it. That is the true path of liberation. When we try to control others or situations, fatigue and affliction arise. But when we return inward to tame our own minds, everything becomes lighter. Happiness is not the product of favorable circumstances. It is the fruit of a stable and resilient inner life. Thoughts are the mirror reflecting one's level of spiritual maturity. A practitioner is not someone without thoughts, but one who observes, recognizes, and transforms them with mindfulness. Each time a thought arises, ask yourself, where is this thought taking me? Does it come from ignorance or understanding? Does it nourish love or inflate the ego? In the light of meditative insight, we learn not to be swept away by the current of thinking. Rather than letting the mind control us, we return to take charge of it. We do not suppress or run away, but look directly into every stream of consciousness with compassion. It is in this awareness that thought becomes the object of contemplation, a chance to understand oneself and to release deep-seated attachments. If true happiness is what we seek, the path begins with mastering the inner world. Do not wait for everything outside to be perfect in order to be happy. Begin with a wholesome thought right now, because here and now the seed of awakening already lies within your own heart. To master your life does not begin by possessing more, but by deeply understanding what is happening inside you. Each thought, when touched by awareness, becomes a flower of wisdom, and when nourished by compassion, it becomes a light dispelling the fog of delusion. In this ever-changing world, if there is one thing most worth protecting, it is the purity of your mind. For thought, ultimately, is the very root of all suffering, and also the door that opens to true happiness. Right and wrong perception, the roots of wisdom and delusion. On the path to enlightenment, the Buddha not only taught people to let go of sensual desire, but also to abandon mistaken perceptions, for it is precisely distorted views that give rise to suffering. People in the world often suffer because they misperceive the true nature of life. They mistake impermanence for permanence. They see suffering as happiness. They see what is non-self as a separate, enduring self, and they mistake impurity for purity. In many of his discourses at Savatthi, the Buddha warned the bhikkhus about these four erroneous perceptions. These teachings are not mere philosophical theory. They are a lantern that lights the path for any practitioner seeking freedom from suffering. If a person does not clearly see impermanence, they will cling. If they do not see suffering as it is, they will become attached. If they fail to see non-self, they will identify with the ego. And if they do not see impurity, they will chase after form and sensual pleasure. Right view is not simply intellectual understanding. It is insight that penetrates every breath, every feeling. It is when one can look at a withered flower without regret, when one can see a sick body without panic, when one can face loss without losing oneself. This kind of vision, clear, silent, and detached, is the mark of awakening wisdom. We do not suffer because of things themselves, but because of the way we see those things. When perception is wrong, everything becomes distorted. We may believe someone dislikes us based on a cold glance. We may think life is meaningless after a few failures. But the world is not wrong. The mistake lies in our way of seeing. Suffering does not arise from external events, but from a mind that is not in harmony with the Dharma. A true practitioner is one who is constantly examining their own perceptions. In every situation, before every reaction, they do not rush to judge. Instead, they turn inward and ask, "What am I seeing? Is this perception true? Does it arise from habit or from ignorance?" This daily contemplation slowly refines and purifies perception, leading it toward what is true. Wisdom does not arise instantly from practice. It comes from realization. When we live long enough in mindfulness, we begin to see the impermanent nature of all phenomena. We realize that this body cannot be held onto. This relationship cannot be kept forever. Wealth, status, fame, they come and go like dust. And when we see this clearly, the heart becomes lighter. We stop blaming life every time something is lost. To see impermanence is to let go. To see suffering is to understand. To see non-self is to love. To see impurity is to return inward and nurture inner beauty. These are the four right views, right understanding, the foundation for all spiritual practice. If we are not yet able to dwell fully in great wisdom, then at least let us begin with questioning our own perceptions. Let us not believe in every emotion that arises in the mind. Let us not allow our prejudices or old habits to shape our destiny today. Let us learn to see with new eyes, eyes that have been washed clean by meditative insight, by mindfulness, and by compassion. For once our perception is correct, all thoughts and actions that follow will flow naturally in the direction of awakening. And in that place, suffering no longer has any ground to take root. Mindfulness in thoughts and emotions, the lamp that illuminates the inner world. There is a silent river that flows endlessly through the human mind. That is the river of thoughts and emotions. This river may be calm, clear, and refreshing, but it may also become turbulent, overflowing, sweeping away all inner peace. And the strange truth is, most people are not even aware that they are swimming in it. They allow themselves to be carried away by waves of anger, confusion, sadness, or desire, unaware of where these waves even began. The Buddha taught, like a wise gatekeeper who knows who comes in and who goes out, a mindful practitioner also clearly knows each thought that arises in the mind. True practice does not begin with outward forms. It begins with awareness of each arising mental formation. Mindfulness is the lamp that shines into every hidden corner of the mind. It is the only tool that allows us to truly understand and master our emotions. We often believe that emotions are natural things. They come and go like the wind. But in truth, emotions that go unrecognized become the source of deep suffering. Suppressed anger can turn into toxic residue. A sadness not understood may lead us away from ourselves. Even a joy that we chase can become a chain that binds. No emotion is inherently bad, but when mindfulness is absent, we become ruled by these emotions without even knowing it. A mindful practitioner does not suppress emotion. They illuminate it with awareness, watching it arise, grow, and then dissolve. They do not flee, do not repress, and do not identify. When sadness comes, they know this is a feeling of sadness. When anger arises, they know this is the energy of irritation arising. And through such recognition, the emotion loses its grip on them. Mindfulness transforms rather than eliminates. Just as the sun does not need to chase away darkness, but only needs to shine for darkness to vanish, so too does mindfulness. Simply by being present with the breath, with each arising thought and stirring emotion, bring calm and clarity to the mind. It anchors us, so we are no longer adrift in unconscious habit. One who lacks mindfulness often reacts automatically. They see someone acting distant and immediately think, they dislike me. They feel ignored and conclude, I am not important. But a mindful person knows all thoughts are fleeting mental constructs, not ultimate truth. They do not instantly believe their own thoughts because they understand that the mind is often clouded by delusion. In an age where people are easily swept up by social media, collective emotion, and endless distractions, mindfulness is the safest refuge. It is the space where we can pause, breathe deeply, and ask ourselves, what am I feeling? Do I really understand myself? What am I thinking of others? Does this thought arise from insight, or is it just a reflex of old patterns? One who lives mindfully is like someone holding their own hand, no longer lost in emotional storms, but steady like a mountain. Whether praised or criticized, whether gaining or losing, they dwell peacefully within themselves. And it is this dwelling that becomes the ground for love, understanding, and authenticity. Mindfulness does not erase suffering, but it enables us to face suffering with light and compassion. When there is mindfulness in each thought and emotion, we are no longer victims of the mind, but awake companions to our own journey. Changing the way we see others, returning to compassion and understanding. In every human soul, there is an inner mirror reflecting the outer world. But this mirror is rarely clear. It is often fogged by prejudice, past wounds, comparisons, and dust from old memories. That is why we rarely see others as they truly are. We see them through the clouded lens of our own mind. We often worry about what others think of us, yet seldom ask, what am I thinking about them? The way we think of others, whether with love or hatred, with generosity or judgment, is the most honest reflection of our inner world. The Buddha once taught, if one day someone speaks or acts in an unkind way, remember their good qualities. Compassion is not just a feeling, it is a way of seeing, a gaze that looks beyond surface behavior to perceive the suffering hidden within the person in front of us. Those who are quick to anger or easily cause harm are not necessarily bad people. They are often just dwelling in a barren landscape of the heart, one that has never been watered by love and understanding. They suffer, but don't know they are suffering. They hurt others because they themselves carry unhealed wounds. Therefore, when someone appears unkind, don't be quick to dislike them. Learn to see them with the eyes of a bodhisattva. See in them not only faults, but suffering. See not only unwholesome acts, but a consciousness still awaiting the light of awakening. We often have the tendency to spot others' flaws, waiting for someone to stumble so we can point fingers. But that very attitude becomes fertile ground for the growth of ego. When the heart is full of judgment, there is no room for compassion to bloom. A person who knows how to look inward will expect less perfection from others, and from there, compassion arises more easily. When we return to ourselves, we realize we too have been careless. We too have caused hurt, whether by accident or intention. And if we ourselves are not perfect, why demand that others be flawless? This insight becomes the foundation of forgiveness. A forgiveness not given because someone deserves it, but because we understand their suffering and our own. The Buddha taught us not to cling to the faults of others. For the more we grasp at faults, the more rigid the mind becomes. The more we record others' wrongs, the heavier our hearts grow. Learn to let go, like gently brushing off a dry leaf on your shoulder. No blame, no judgment, just the wisdom to know this leaf no longer needs to be carried. Changing the way we see is not a superficial act. It is a radical transformation of the spiritual heart. It is when we give up the desire to change others to find peace, and instead return to transform ourselves to create peace. In that moment, compassion is no longer a distant ideal. It becomes a living capacity, present in every gaze, every smile, every look of true understanding. From this moment on, if we can, let us try to see each person as if they carry within them a story we don't yet know. Let us focus on their lovable side, like a flower picker who only chooses the most beautiful blooms among the weeds. Because when the way of seeing changes, the world inside us also changes, and only then do we truly know how to love, not as a fleeting feeling, but as an awakened intention. letting go of the past, living fully in the present. Some people spend their whole lives searching for happiness, yet never truly find it. Not because life is too cruel, but because they carry an invisible burden, the past. They live in the present, but their hearts are constantly pulled back to distant years, an old mistake, an unhealed wound, a regret that still clings. The Buddha taught, do not pursue the past. Do not seek the future. Contemplate the present moment and live peacefully in mindfulness. This is one of the most sacred teachings, for it awakens us from the psychological trap of time, bringing us back to the only moment we truly have, the now. The past, whether beautiful or painful, is nothing more than a shadow in memory. What causes suffering is not the past itself, but our thoughts about the past. The regrets, the self-blame, the resentment, the anger. We think we are living, but in fact, we are being controlled by the ghosts of time. The more we hate the past, the heavier our present becomes. A practitioner does not deny the past, nor do they run from it. They learn to embrace the past with wisdom and compassion, like a gentle mother cradling a wounded child returning home. They do not let old mistakes imprison them in guilt, but use the cracks in their soul as gateways for the light of understanding to enter. For everyone has stumbled before. No one lives without ever making a mistake. Letting go of the past does not mean erasing memories. It means no longer carrying them as a burden. Let the past become a teacher, not a tormentor. Learn from it, then walk forward with ease. Don't stay locked in the same room of regret that has no exit. In meditation, when we return to our breath, we are silently telling ourselves, this moment is enough. This moment is sacred. There's no need to wait until we achieve something to be happy. No need to wait for a perfect future. Happiness isn't in some faraway time, nor has it been lost in the past. It exists in each mindful breath, each steady step, each loving glance. When we can release the past, we are not only letting go of pain, but also letting go of the self that was wounded in that past. That self, the one longing for comfort, for reparation, for validation, is the very rope that binds us to suffering. But when we realize no one is perfect, not even ourselves, we learn the art of forgiveness, forgiving others and forgiving ourselves. Forgiveness is a profound form of meditation, one that liberates us from invisible chains. Letting go of the past is an act of courage. Not everyone dares to put the burden down, for many have grown so used to their pain that it becomes a part of who they are. But when we can say, I am no longer the person I was yesterday, that very moment marks the beginning of liberation. The present is a gift, but only those who release the past have hands free to receive it. And once we live fully in the now, even a flower becomes profound. Even a bird's song becomes wondrous. There is no need to go far to find peace. Just sit down, breathe deeply, smile gently, and say to yourself, I am here. Meditation, the path of healing and mastery over emotions. In a world full of noise and upheaval, people are increasingly vulnerable to emotional wounds. A cold glance can weigh heavily on the heart. A harsh word can leave cracks in the soul. When the mind lacks stability, emotions become the rulers. We are led by anger, confusion, fear, and loneliness, without even realizing that we are no longer in control of ourselves. Within the treasury of the Buddha's teachings, meditation, samādhi, is the supreme method for healing and regulating emotions. Meditation is not simply sitting still in lotus posture. It is a return to the breath, to the heart, to one's innermost being where the depth of stillness resides. When we sit down, close our eyes, and do nothing but breathe, deeply, slowly, and mindfully, we begin to hear the subtle murmurs of our inner world. We see sadness arising, an unhealed wound leaking pain, a simmering anger coming to a boil. We do not run, we do not suppress, we simply breathe and recognize Hello, sadness, I see you. This recognition is the first step in transformation. Emotions in themselves are not enemies. They are signals, alarm bells from body and mind. But without mindfulness, we are easily swept away by them. Anger becomes violent action. Fear becomes avoidance. Pain becomes self-isolation. Meditation teaches us to pause before reacting, so we can see clearly where an emotion originates, from ego, past trauma, bias, or illusion. Meditation is also medicine for the modern psyche. Today, Western psychology has begun to recognize the therapeutic value of mindfulness meditation. In emotional therapy, doctors use mindful breathing, walking meditation, and even loving kindness meditation to help patients overcome anxiety, depression, and social phobia. But beyond therapy, Buddhist meditation is a comprehensive path of transformation, not merely helping us move through pain, but guiding us to uproot its very causes. Meditation practice need not be complex. Simply sit still, follow your breath, count from 1 to 10, then return to 1 in full awareness. Each time the mind wanders, smile gently and guide it back. Like a loving mother walking her child through a busy market. Day by day, moment by moment, we train the mind as a blacksmith hammers rhythmically on a blade, tempering it with mindfulness. One powerful practice is loving kindness meditation, metta bhavana, sending goodwill and love to oneself and to others. We sit silently whispering, "May I be at peace, may I be healed, may I be free from suffering." Then we send the same to someone who has hurt us, then to all beings. With each repetition, the heart is watered by compassion, slowly softening, releasing, and healing. Meditation does not remove us from life. It allows us to be fully present in it. When the mind is calm, emotions no longer dictate us. We walk through the world with the stillness of a deep lake. Storms may come, but the water is no longer stirred to its depths. Old wounds may resurface, but we do not cry out. We embrace and smile. One who knows how to sit quietly, how to breathe in mindfulness, is one who is learning the art of self-mastery, something no ideology or possession in the world can offer. Wisdom, letting go of the ego, living with love and truth. Throughout his journey to enlightenment, the Buddha was not merely seeking a metaphysical truth. He sought a path to practically liberate human beings from suffering, a path that begins with wisdom, paññā. In the light of the Dharma, wisdom is not the same as intelligence or scholarly knowledge. Wisdom is the ability to see reality as it truly is, without embellishment, projection, or attachment. The truth that the Buddha invites us to see lies not in distant realms, but in the very nature of all phenomena, impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Everything from a leaf, an emotion, a relationship, to this body and this stream of consciousness is constantly changing. When we see this clearly, we no longer cling, and in the absence of clinging, inner freedom begins to arise. True freedom does not come from mastering the external world, but from no longer being bound by the internal chains of the ego. The ego, that seemingly real I, is in fact the greatest illusion we have believed in. It constantly wants to assert itself, to win, to be right, to be validated. And it is in this endless chase that much of our suffering is born. But with wisdom, we begin to see the ego as a mental construction, a bundle of habits, emotions, memories, and labels. It has no inherent identity. Seeing this is not about denying the self, but about letting go of attachment to it, so that we may live more lightly, without the need for constant self-defense. When the ego is no longer in charge, compassion has room to flourish. In Buddhism, wisdom and compassion are never separate. The wiser one becomes, the more deeply one loves. Not a pitying kind of love, but a profound empathy rooted in deep understanding. The knowing that everyone suffers, that all are bound by ego and illusion, that all have at times been lost. From this insight, judgment ceases. The need to be right vanishes. What remains is a desire to help others cross this sea of suffering more gently. Wisdom does not make one cold or distant. It warms the heart with the light of clear seeing. A wise person does not argue, does not need to prove themselves, does not cling to being right. They simply smile, knowing that most of the world's pain does not come from events themselves, but from misperception. A person of wisdom also does not chase after hollow goals. They understand that what we often believe will bring happiness, a degree, a success, a title, are fleeting illusions. Once attained, they often leave a void behind. That is why the wise do not place happiness in the destination, but in each step, each mindful moment. And ultimately, wisdom teaches us to let go. Let go of being right. Let go of being better. Let go even of the idea of me, so we can live fully with truth, with people, with nature, with life as it is. One who lives with wisdom does not withdraw from the world, but lives in the world, without being ruled by it. They are like the lotus that grows from the mud, but remains unstained, like the mountain that stands unmoved amid storms, like a dewdrop that knows it will vanish in sunlight, yet does not grieve, for it has shimmered fully in the golden light of dawn. The journey of inner transformation and true happiness. When a person begins to realize that suffering does not arise from the world outside but from within their own mind, that is the very moment the door to awakening opens. The spiritual path in Buddhism does not lead us to some distant realm but brings us back to our own inner being, the very source from which all genuine happiness arises. Thought is the original seed, but if that seed is not watered with mindfulness and insight, it sprouts into ambition, anger, and jealousy. On the contrary, if it is illuminated by wisdom, each stream of thought becomes a step of peace on the path to awakening. This is why in Buddhism, the practice of observing the mind contemplating mind, is considered the heart of all cultivation. Human suffering often stems from mistaken perceptions, seeing permanence in what is impermanent, seeing self in what is non-self, seeing joy in what is truly suffering. And when our vision is wrong, we love wrongly, live wrongly, react wrongly, caught in a never-ending cycle of affliction. Thus, the path to liberation is, first of all, a path of correcting our perception to straighten the mind, as the Buddha taught. Every pain in life is tied to a wounded self, a self that wants to be loved, to be understood, to be above, to be acknowledged. But if we are clear enough to look deeply into this ego, we'll see it is not real. It is merely a psychological habit, a conditioning carried over from the past. And once we see this truth, we learn how to let go. Letting go does not mean indifference or denial. It means seeing things as they are without attachment. We do not need to change the world in order to find peace. We only need to transform our own mind in order to live peacefully in the world. True serenity does not come from having life go our way, but from living in harmony with the impermanent truth of things. Meditation is like a raft amid the ocean of emotions. It helps us remain lucid amidst the ups and downs of life. Mindfulness is the lamp that shines into the dark corners of the mind. Compassion is the warmth that heals old wounds. And wisdom is the eye that prevents us from being lost in delusion. When these three elements are present together, we begin to live from a new consciousness, the consciousness of liberation. On this journey, we do not need to become someone else. We simply need to return to ourselves, return to each breath, each step, each tiny thought. Each day lived in mindfulness is a day that sheds a layer of delusion and brings us closer to our true nature, pure mind, unborn and undying, uncoming and ongoing. Happiness is not somewhere far away. It is present in every moment where we let go of ego and open the heart to love. When the mind is calm, when vision is clear, when the heart is spacious, then this life, no matter how difficult, becomes a sacred path. And so life is no longer a sea of suffering, but a river of awakening, where each drop of water is capable of reflecting the full light of the moon of truth.